Avart, Chassidus, Avart Torah. We're here to learn about Mashiach, and we're here more importantly to bring Mashiach. And today's Erev Reish Chodesh, which is Yom Kippur Katan, of course, Cheshbon HaNefesh this past month, Shnas HaShivim. We still didn't bring Mashiach, but we're still in Shnas HaShivim, so we can still do it, get it done. Tzadik HaTamar Yifrach says in the Gemara that they saw an old man trying to plant a palm tree, of course dates. So he said, "What a fool!" He told the man, "You're gonna die before you have a chance. It takes 70 years for a date tree to grow." So he said, "You're a fool." He said, "How do you think I have a date tree? My Zayda did the same thing, so that's why I have." That's how it's done. So we see it takes 70 years for the growth to grow forth. So definitely we're going into Adar. It's going to be amazing. So there's a Sikha Rebbe about this very topic, about going into Adar and the connection to Mashiach and the connection to the Parsha as well, which is the Sikha of the Rebbe Tafshin on Beis, which obviously has a special Chavivis. It's mamish a month before Chazayin Adar. These are the last words we heard from the Rebbe. And the Rebbe was speaking, and it was the same Kviyas also, which means Reish Chodesh came out on Tuesday and Wednesday, like this year. It's coming up. Tuesday and Wednesday is Lamed and Aleph Adar. And what's special about Adar, of course, is Mishanichnas Adar Marbin with a nun or with a mem? The nun, interestingly enough. Marbin is but if you look at the source of this Gemara, actually it's a Mishnah in Tainis of all Masechtas to say this line. And what does it say? It says Kishem Mishanichnas Av Mematim B'Simcha, just like when you enter into Chodesh Av, you're supposed to decrease in joy and Simcha. So too, when you enter into Adar, you should be Marbin B'Simcha. As if it's totally Haba. I need to have the lack of joy in Adar in order to enjoy yourself on Adar. What's the connection? The Rebbe says, yeah, and the Gemara gives a practical implication. If you have a court case, state in the Helike Gemara, Tainis Daf Chavtes, Bar Yisrael de Islay Dina Bahade Nachri. You have a court case with the guy. Lishtameit Minei. What's Lishtameit Minei? Avoid the court case. We know how it's done in New York City. You keep pushing it off as long as possible. 9 months later, you show up for Chodesh Adar, and you have your court case. What should you do? Not in Av because Rea Mazole, but rather in Adar the body Mazole. That your mazel is very strong. The mazel of a yid. What's the connection? It shows that it's the same teichen. In other words, what? Why did we go through the suffering and the trials and the tribulations and the darkness that we went through? In order to arrive at the simcha of Adar. Kishem, right? Just like, what does just like mean? Commensurate to. It's the same shear. The two things, the two sides of the same coin. The joy they're going to experience is based upon the darkness that was felt and the distance that was felt. Right? It speaks a lot about this Chassidus, that Simcha and Tainug, Tsar and Oinig are from the exact same thing. They're based on how much pleasure you have, that's how much Tsar you have, the lack of it. Right? And Oinig and Nega, Ein Lamata Bi Nega, Ein Lamata Bi Oinig, it's the same letters. Chassidus brings it down 1,000,000 times. I think it's maybe from the Zohar HaKadosh. But the bottom line is that, in other words, the essence, if you want to understand truly how great the Geula is going to be, just study how deep the Golus is, and you'll have an inkling about what we must be talking about when we talk about the Geula. So the Rebbe already makes that connection immediately and connects the two. And the Rebbe says that's part of the special joy of Adar. In other words, not just the time when you just start being joyous. No, it's when we take all the negativity, and on the contrary, it says in Tanya that the deepest Aveda, the purpose of creation was, there are some people who love sweet taste. There's two kinds of taste. And then there's, in English, it's called savory. A savory dish. Right? There's a sweet dish and a savory dish. Savory means spicy, sour. And we all know that if it's deliciously sour, the taste is unbelievable. So it says in Sefer Tanya Kadisha that when we learn, when a yid struggles, and the deeper you struggle, the more tainug, the more pleasure it is for the Eibishter, the more powerful it is, and the more enjoyable it is. And fine. So that's something that Rebbe spoke about, and that's something that we as Yidden and as Chassidim live with. that 25 years after, or even more now, after Gimel Tammuz, and with the whole, everything happening in the world, clearly the whole purpose of creation was to have this moment. Right? In other words, it's a famous word, it's brought in Chassidus, and it's very negate to us when we're discussing the Gula. Now what? That being that the whole purpose of creation is what? Dira b'tachteina. What does Dira b'tachteina mean? That's explained in Chassidus. That the Eibusher wanted a dwelling place in the lowest place. That even in a dark world, I could still feel at home, right? So being that every year that goes by, it's a lower generation. Every generation that goes by, it's a lower generation. Every year that goes by, it's a tifrei galus. What does it mean? That means that in that lower level, you haven't yet showed that the Eibusher could feel at home. But Dira b'tachteina. What does that mean practically? That means that the purpose couldn't have been in the year 2000 or in the year 1970. The kavanah dafka was for the year 2020. In other words, everything was just a lead up to this moment. Could the Eibusher feel at home in 2020? Tavshin Pei. This is the kavanah. This is the highest year that ever existed. Because if it's the lowest, that means it's the highest. Because it means we haven't yet made a dira in a place of 2020. Almost 30 years after Gimel Tammuz, right? That's the perspective that you bring. And when the Yidden come out in shining colors, right? Just 2 weeks ago, someone made an Inyan and learning look at the sikhs, go through look at the sikhs, learn a sikha, 2 sikhs every week. They were expecting 770 Yidden to sign up. That was their big hope. They were searching and yearning and hoping. Now it's already 4,900 and something Yidden. Azay. From everywhere and from all over the world, Italy, and France, and South America, North. What's that, man? Mamish the bar that I'm speaking over here. The aseilim matam, the joy, the simcha of other is the mapecha from Chodesh Av. That's really what it is. What makes a yid happy is that he can take negativity and transform it and bring it into positivity. And the Rebbe says, what's the ultimate positivity? Mashiach. That's the whole part of Mashiach. Then we're going to be happy. Why are we going to be so happy? Because it's the ultimate revelation and transformation of negativity into light. And taking Olam Hazeh Dafka, and that's the whole future of Mashiach happening Dafka over here. Now that's the connection to Chodesh Adar, which brings us into, and the Rebbe says how everything's connected to each other, the week, the year, the parsha, with what's happening. Parshas Truma. Now we don't have to search too far to see the connection. Some parsha is Daf and Zuchen. You have to look for Mashiach, whatever. Parshas Truma, I don't think we have to look too far to find Mashiach. Right? Build me a Beis HaMikdash. Right? And I think the last month in Beis, I think Taka the Rebbe started like every Fabrengen, every Shabbos then. Every Fabrengen, the Rebbe began with like Zapel Achi Gadol, the Rebbe says, that we're reading about. The Eibusher says, build the Beis HaMikdash, and there was any moving klal, that the Eibusher, why doesn't the Eibusher tell us to build the Beis HaMikdash? The Rebbe said, we're still waiting, I think the last Fabrengen. The Rebbe said, Mevart noch, is the Eibusher should give the Nesinas Koyach and the Tzivui to build the Beis HaMikdash. You're telling us to build a Beis HaMikdash. Tell us to build a Beis HaMikdash. You want a Beis HaMikdash? We'll build you the Beis HaMikdash. But so the connection is right there. But more in detail, what the Rebbe focuses in on in the Sikha in Truma Nun Beis. And by the way, anyone here knows why Truma Nun Beis is a very famous Fabrengen? The Rebbe said something very famous. If someone tells you that there's a hirah from the Rebbe to try to be rich, it's this Fabrengen. Right? Begashmis even. The Rebbe says Be'ikr Beruchnis. The Rebbe also says Begashmis. And that's the whole, the Rebbe talks about Zahav. And the Rebbe says that all Yidden are already rich, and all you have to do is be Megalit. Therefore, you don't have to do too much effort. After Megalit and the richness, even Begashmis. Okay. That's why that's one of the most famous elements of this Sikha. Truma Nun Beis. When someone says those words, that's what they mean. This is the line, the cut and paste, the line taken from this Fabrengen. But what's the Nvart? Because the Rebbe focuses in on the Fabrengen, and it has to do with everything we've been talking about, Mashiach. So the Rebbe focuses in on when it goes through the 15 donations you bring to the Beis HaMikdash. It says, Zayis hatruma shatichu mi'itam, what? Zav, v'chesav, v'necheshes, and it goes on and so on and so forth, gold, silver, copper, etc. And fundamentally what the Rebbe asks is, why does it begin with Zahav? And the question has many dimensions. The Rebbe goes through many dimensions of why it shouldn't have begun with Zahav. You're thinking to yourself, it's a good place to start from, Zahav. What kind of question is that? But the Rebbe shows how really it shouldn't have started from Zahav. First of all, the derech of Torah is mikal kavid, right? You start. Not only do I want you to bring this, I want you to also bring this. Not only I want you to bring this, I want you to bring this, and so on and so. That's called mikal kavid. That's how the seder is throughout the Torah. The Gemara, even in the Gemara, that's the normal seder. What the Gemara has to be mechadish sometimes that the Mishnah meant zu ve'ein tzarich leimar zu. Right? There's a seder of loy zu afzu. Not only this, but also this. But then there's zu, and I don't even have to tell you this. Then why do you have to tell me? The first one, and then the zu ve'ein tzarich leimar. I don't even have to tell you this. Then why? Then don't tell. Right? If you didn't have to give away the rezav, for sure you have to give everything else. Why? It should have started from the other inyan, and that's one perspective from where it should have begun. Another one is that if you study all 15 donations, and as elaborated upon by the Ramban, specifically in Parshas Vayakel, it's going in order of how many Yidden have each item. That's what it's doing. More Yidden have this, and then less Yidden have Atzir Shittim, and then the least amount of Yidden have Pstavnei Shoyham. That there's even a medrash that the Rebbe quotes that they had to fly it in from clouds. It says the Nesiim, what it means by the Nesiim is not the princes. It's not the Nesiya of the Shvatim. Rather, the Nesiya means another word for clouds, the Anonim, that Areingebracht. I don't remember right now when they brought the Esrogim from Calabria. It says Moshe Rabbeinu sent shluchim. I think it says Al-Gabi Anonim. I'm 99% certain. Right? The same concept. He sent them with clouds. The shluchim went to Italy. Zurückgebracht the Esrogim, and then they had the Esrogim, right? This is the Esrogim that we use. So based on that cheshbon, here's another reason. You don't begin with Zahav. Zahav is not the most common thing in terms of what everybody has. You begin with Nechoshes, Kesef, and Zahav. So why, indeed, does it begin with Zahav? And the explanation is that the beer goes to the fundamental question of how indeed, and it goes to the point that we began this whole discussion with, how indeed is it that Yidden have the power, and specifically when we say Yidden, the lowest Yidden, how is it that we are the generation basically who are going to bring Mashiach? How is it that Pashta Yidden, people who don't have tremendous levels of intellectual understanding of godliness, people are mumbling, davening, not that it's a good thing, but the gate, tahin, sarik, people are davening, learning how much they're understanding, doing mitzvahs, unfortunately maybe sometimes also doing Avedis, but this is the generation, right? It's almost like a cosmic joke. All the Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't Zeicha, David HaMelech not, the Baal Shem Tov not, all the generation, we're the ones, no one else is here, B'chlal. It's like you show up, but Melech HaMashiach shows up. Das Redman, right? It's an unbelievable thing. What's the pshat? What's the Havana? What's the Havana? And that's why, and that's the fundamental underlying question that has to be dealt with when you talk about this reality of building a Mishkan and building a Beis Hamikdash where Hashem says, I'm going to rest. And you're taking donations from everybody, not from the Hechs dimension per se, but it begins with Zav, and Zav, that's the secret of the mystery and the answer to this question. And fundamentally what it is that the whole commandment to build a Mishkan only happened after the Matan Torah. Why? Because Matan Torah, what happened primarily by Matan Torah? We know it says in Shulchan Aruch, what are you supposed to have in mind? When you read Birchas Krishma, you're supposed to have in mind different things in each word. So when you say the words of Vanu v'charta v'kolam v'lashen, what? You're supposed to think we're supposed to think about Matan Torah. It says in Shulchan Aruch, what should brought down? In other words, Matan Torah was the time when Hashem chose us. And very good, he said, and it says in Tanya, Be'ikir, he chose the guf, chose the body of a Yid. As explained in Tanya at length, Tanya says that the soul of a Jew, that level doesn't really need to be chosen. It's godly. It's a piece of the divine essence. What kind of choice are we discussing? What do you mean choose? The whole word of choice that we talk about is the Yidden as they manifest themselves in this world, that our very bodies are identified with our godly souls. This reality of suspension of all self, of all ego, total bittul, total the total connection to Hashem, total representation that we like represent Hashem in this world. That is a chiddush. That's bana v'charta. That's a connection that we have with Hakadosh Baruch Hu, with the Eibishter. And in other words, when we talk about the divide between heaven and earth ended with the giving of the Torah, that Chassidus talks about so often, that there used to be this big divide, and that's what it means in our own lives. That we no longer make the division between our bodies and our souls. Rather, our very souls, we are identified with our souls. Our souls are one with our body. Don't make these distinction between these two levels by a yid. From that time on, that's how it was. That Af B'Shachata Yisrael, the reality, the yid's reality is that he's totally selfless. This may come as a surprise to some Jews. You're totally a selfless person. No ego whatsoever. All you want is Ratzon Hashem. And anything else is external, is Yitzrehu Shatokve. You're deluding yourself, you're fooling yourself, you're burying your head in the sand, and so on. And even a yid, and so on, and it goes to all that. Even a yid who Shalei Lishma. What's the famous word of the Baal Shem Tov? Was steht in the Gemara? Mitoich Shalei Lishma, Bal Lishma. Chlal the Rebbe has an unbelievable sikh, and Chassidus discusses this, and it's a very fundamental. What do we always like saying? What do we always like saying? What do we like quoting? Hamay Suiker. Yeah, that's not what the Mishnah says. What does the Mishnah say? Do Torah mitzvah Shalei Lishma. Why? Mitoich Shalei Lishma, Bal Lishma. What does it imply? It implies that if you're never going to come to Lishma, then don't do it. That's what it sounds like on its face. On its face. Azay is mashma, klar. Yeah. Mitoich Shalei Lishma. What's Chassidus Masber? Chassidus Masber that inevitably it's going to be Lishma. I don't know in this lifetime, but that's inevitably. Why? Baal Shem Tov's avart. Mitoich Shalei Lishma. Because the toich of the Shalei Lishma is Lishma. And therefore, now read it kipshutei. Mitoich, from the essence, from the inner content of what's happening of the Shalei Lishma, it's going to end up coming out. If that's really how it is b'pnimius, from the toich of the Shalei Lishma, Bal Lishma, it's going to come to Lishma. You can be rest assured, you know for a fact, you know the reality. But why tak is it so negeh Lishma? For this very question that we asked, how is it possible a yid as a shaykhis, he's going to bring down, he's going to be a keli? When we talk about dira b'tachtonim, we mean a dira in us. Who are we? No, because a yid is taka keli af the Eibishter. And no matter what level of a yid could say, I am a vessel for God Almighty. Which is why Hashem is able to command every yid, V'asu li migdash, and Rashi says l'shmi, that it could be l'shma. L'shma is this crazy aveda. Rambam says, Avraham Avinu did l'shma. L'shma means only for Hashem, and nothing alternative, and so on. Because every yid has that within them, and they just have to bring it out and reveal it. And this goes to that point, why it begins the donation of Zahav. Why Zahav represents that. Because Zahav, it's very interesting. The Rishonim, it's an interesting, I would have thought that it's a Vart, but the Rishonim bring a Rashi Tevis that Zahav stands for. The Baalei HaTosfos, the Rosh, are the earliest sources that Rebbe seems to be quoting. But those are ganz beseder, the Rosh. Now, the Rebbe also brings the Maharal, but the earlier ones that he brings, Rabbi Seinu Baalei HaTosfos and the Pirush HaRosh. The Rosh says that Zahav is Rashi Tevis, Zeh HaNoisen body. Zeh HaNoisen body. Translation? This giver is healthy, right? Or this is a healthy giver. Zeh HaNoisen body, that's Zahav. The Rebbe says, what does that represent? With the first donation, Zahav. You begin with Zahav. Why? Because it's trying to bring out not only the chashivas of the gold. The reason why the Torah begins with the donation of Zahav to the Beis Hamikdash, to the Mishkan, is not only to bring out the chashivas of gold. No, it's trying to bring out the chashivas of the Yidden giving the gold. Right? That the most important part of his possession is what goes to the Eibishter, right? Because the identity of a Yid after the giving of the Torah is that even on the physical plane, where you need to come on to gold and silver and copper and everything else, is Ertzum, and the Rebbe's words, is Ertzum alam ershe not osher be'etzim. To begin anything, you have to know that he's an usher. He deals with zahav. He deals with gold. And he's betachlis habrius. Begashas uberuchnius. He's a healthy person. A yid is a healthy person. You're trying to bring out this vart that every yid is zahav. Every yid is gold. And every yid is an usher. And essentially, this goes back to the answer of the question of our generation and so on. And the Rebbe doesn't say this explicitly, but I think this is the underlying idea fundamentally of the Rebbe. And keep in mind, like we said before, this is almost the last month we heard from the Rebbe. So the Rebbe is obviously telling us things, right? And what the Rebbe is telling us is an amazing thing, which is that, in all generations, Yidden, Klal Yisrael was propped up by tzaddikim. What do I mean? I mean, b'derech hatava, there were, so many things happened to us, so much tragedy and so much hurt and so much difficulty and so much concealment of godliness that we would have not made it. That Eibush sent us tzaddikim in every generation who inspired the Jewish people. They always had these tzaddikim who stood there, and we were able to follow them, and they were the fire sent by the Eibishter. Right? The Eibishter sent us. And by the way, this is explicitly written in Tanya. If you look in Chelik Shari Yichud Ve'emunah, he says that the Eibishter wanted to create the world with Midas Hadin. He saw the world's not going to last, so what did he do? Shitif ime Midas Harachamim. Then the Alter Rebbe teaches, what is Midas Harachamim? Anybody remember? What? What's he write though in Shari Yichud Ve'emunah? That's in Perek Aleph Tanya. What's right there? What's the rachamim? Oiseisu moifsim Shabbat Torah, the miracles of the Torah, the giluyim of the Torah, v'tzadikim shebachol der v'der. The Eibishter saw the world's not going to last. He wanted to make a midas hagvura. He wanted whatever you want. What we'll see in a moment. He wanted to push the Yidden Lamazon. But he saw the world won't last. What's the degeton? Concealment of godliness, and yet to reveal the ultimate revelation. But he saw it's not going to last. They needed to be, so they always got pushed along by tzaddikim, and of course by the inspiration which keeps us till this very day. The Isis and Meisim Shabbat Torah, the Eibush Mamash revealed His face to us. Things that no one in the world ever saw before or since, right? Matan Torah, and so on. What's happening now in our generation? A crazy thing, if you think about it. The biggest raya that Mashiach is about to come. The first generation in maybe human history, but definitely Jewish history, of no tzaddikim that you could see begali, right? In other words, you're not being propped along. Only push the Yidden. You walk down the street, you're not going to find anywhere in the world anything but it's only us. We're the only ones left. And the shaila is, have we internalized Elikus? Have we internalized everything that we've been told for thousands of years? Is it really us, or we're always being pushed along? There's always Psagili Mamaila. Are we Zahav? Right? And that's really what the Rebbe says, that every Yid, the power to build the Beis HaMikdash, that starts off because you have to know that you're Zahav. You're not the lowest. How are you making it? Because you are Mamish it. You are totally bottle to the Eibishter. In Guf HaGashmi. In the Gashmias. In the money. Right? Show me the money, they say. Zav. Azay. And we'd be remiss not to bring the Hira B'Poyel. The Rebbe says that let me see if I can find it. But Be'ikir, basically the Hira is that every Yid has to know. Okay, I'm not finding it right now. But the bottom line is, the limit in dem alim is what? Zum alim ersten Landman der Funareis, we learn that the Eibishter paskind up in his holy Torah, in the eternal Torah, that every Yid is the Cholerei Shaykh to Zov. Ube Pashtus, yeder Yid has to have Ashiris, Sai Beruchnias and Sai Begashmis, Ashiris Pashtus Mamish, right? And the Rebbe says, furthermore, not only does he have to have it, every Yid has it already, because you're already an Asher. He's telling you to give the Zov that you have. You don't see it necessarily Begoli Begashmis. It's not because you don't have it. It's because you have to be Megalit through your Aveda. Right? And so on and so forth. But bottom line, the bottom line is the Hira Lamaisa to us, I think, is that the realization of the special times that we're living in, based on everything that Rebbe taught us, and the realization that we're in a very unique generation, and we shouldn't be disheartened by the reality of our generation, of, where are the tzaddikim and where is this, because we're it. And that should be an inspiration, because being that it's the first time in Yiddish history, that means that really the test of whether the Mashiach's ready to come is our generation. And not only the test, we're the ones who Moshe Rabbeinu was of ma'od, he was humbler than any, he was floored, it says, because he saw our generation. And he saw something, and what he saw was pure gold. So it's a beautiful thing, and we should all be part of it. Mashiach now.